Good day, everyone, and I hope you are doing well. And thank you for joining me on the next installment of LeetCode problems with Java. Today we are doing a new easy problem. This one is called how many numbers are smaller than the current number? Okay, so how many numbers are current than smaller than the current number? This is a really good problem in order of figuring out different ways to optimize searches and your algorithm, of course. Today we're going to be solving it with an iterative solution, basically one of the most basic solutions, but at the end maybe we can discuss other ways of improving the optimization of the search. So, given the array nums, for each nums I, find out how many numbers in the array are smaller than it. That is, for each nums I, you have to count the number of valid j's such that j does not equal I, and nums j is less than nums I. Return the answer in an array. Okay, that's an important piece to know right there. So, example 1. We have an input of this is the array nums that we're putting in, so 8, 1, 2, 2, 3, and our output is 4, 0, 1, 1, 3. So, explanation. For the first nums in this array, the 8, there exist 4 smaller numbers than it. 1, 2, 2, and 3 are all smaller, so that means that 8 has 4 numbers that it's bigger than. For nums 1, which is 1, there does not exist any smaller number than it. When you look at 1, there's not another number that's smaller than it in the array, so that means 0. For nums 2, there exists one smaller number than it, and that's 1. So that means that there's a 1 for its answer. And for nums 3, which is also 2, as you can see up here, there's also just one number smaller than it, and that's this 1. And nums 4, which is 3, there exist 3 smaller numbers than it, 1, 2, and 2. So 3. Okay, so example 2, 6, 5, 4, and 8. 6 has 2 of these numbers, 5 and 4 that's bigger. 5 has one number, just 4. 4 doesn't have any number that it's bigger than, so it's 0. And 8 has 3, so 3. And for 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, sorry about that, the output would be 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, and some constraints here, this is good to know. So the nums array length will be greater than or equal to 2, but less than or equal to 500. And nums I, so the amount of each integer in this array, is going to be greater than or equal to 0 or less than or equal to 100. Okay, so the class here I have already written out. The class is how many numbers are smaller than the current number. And we have our method here, public static int smaller numbers than current. And that takes that int array, and it's called nums, and it returns an int array over here. And we have also our public static void main method, which we'll use to test our argument here at the end. Okay, so to begin, the best way I think to solve this, first off, we're going to need a counter. And this counter will solve however many times when we're looking at, say, the first number in this array, so 8, we're going to go through each number in this array. So we're going to grab 8, and then we're going to look through each number and say, is it bigger than that number? If it is bigger, then we're going to plus plus on the counter. If it isn't bigger, then we just keep the counter the same. That way, so for 8, we'll look at 8 first. Then we'll look at 8 again. Is 8 greater than 8? Nope. Is 8 greater than 1? Yes. So that's going to counter plus plus. 8 greater than 2? Yes. Counter plus plus. Counter plus plus. Counter plus plus. And then we'll put that 4 into our return solution. So we have our counter here. Let's also make our return array, our return int array, which we can call return array, or perhaps return array of count larger than, count of larger than, because it's larger than, we're trying to put that into the count. And then we'll make that equal to a new int array, and we'll put that array the size of nums. So we'll initialize an array, and we'll initialize that array to be the same length as nums, because as we can see up here, all of these output arrays are going to be the same length as the input array. So we can initialize that to that, and then down here we'll start by doing a for loop. So we'll do a for loop here. Nice thing about IntelliJ, you can auto create for loops that way. So we're going to initialize I at 0. That's the first step of a for loop. And then we have the conditional step of the for loop, and we're going to conditionalize so that I is less than nums.length. We're going to run through the length of the array nums, but we're going to stop at the end before we get an array out of bounds issue. Okay, and we're going to iterate once. Now, in here, basically what we're going to do is we're going to just create a second for loop. Now, you'll see here when you create a second for loop inside of a for loop, instead of initializing a variable to I, you initialize it to j. That's just a common Java convention there. And now, so the conditional here, we're going to set j at 0 again, because we're going to start just wherever at the beginning again of the array. So in that first for loop, we're grabbing, just to explain this really quick, in that first for loop, we're grabbing the first number in the input array. In the second for loop, we're going to compare that first number to all the numbers in the array. So we need to start that second for loop at the same place of this first for loop. And we're going to do the same nums.length. Okay? But in here, we're going to say if nums I is greater than nums j, that is, that this 7 is greater than this 7, or in the next iteration of the j for loop, we'll do this 7 greater than this 7 greater than this 7 greater than this 7. In each of those cases, it's not going to be greater, so it's not going to enter this if statement. But if it is greater, then in this if statement, we're going to add to that counter. Okay. Then, so now we have gone through this for loop, like I just said. We're counting up on the counter anytime we find that if it's greater than another digit in the array, or another integer in the array, sorry. And then outside this inner for loop, once it's done computing that counter, we're going to input that counter into the return array. So we're to that first, in this case, the first element of that array, or the ith element, excuse me. And we're going to place that counter. And then we just need to reset counter to 0. That way the next time it goes through the for loop, that counter will be 0 again, and you can do a good job recounting. Okay, the final step we need to do here is return array of count larger than. Oh. And this method name might be a bit confusing there, but you know, that's something that we always have to take notice of, is our method, how we're naming our method names. Maybe you can always put a comment in above it, perhaps saying, you know, our variable name. This variable holds the return data of the array holding of ints each number is greater than. So something like that. If you know, that's just something that can help developers when they're going through their code, if they're trying to figure out what's going on here. So but pretty straightforward here. We initialized our counter, we initialized our return array, we did an initial for loop to go through each element in the array, and then an inner for loop which goes through each element in the array as well, comparing those elements to the initial element that we've selected in this first for loop. If it's greater than the other elements, then we add a counter for each one, and then outside of that inner for loop, we assign whatever that counter's final count was to that spot to the correct spot in the return array. And then the counter we reset to 0. Finally, once both for loops are done running, once this outside for loop is finished up, then we return whatever this array holds. So we'll return this output array. Okay, now let's test this. So we can test this by doing some quick test data, int array, test data, and we'll initialize this to a new int array, and we'll put in some, this is kind of a shortcut way of putting in some numbers here. So we'll do, let's do our first, so 8, 1, 2, 2, and 3. 8, 1, 2, 2, 3. Okay, so that's our test data, and then we'll run this test data and we'll hold it in a final or solution data, or we'll just call it solution. And we can call this, we call the method here smaller number than current. We put in our test data, okay, and then we just need a quick for loop here to run through this test data and print out. Just like that. Okay, so we can run that. And let's see what we got here. Okay, so looking at a solution here, we got back 40113. So we inputted 81223 and we got back 40113. That is correct. Let's try the second example here. 6, 5, 4, and 8. 6, 5, 4, 8. Let's run that. And we should get back 2103. 2103, and finally let's enter 7777. And we should get back zeros. Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I'll just keep my screen over here just in case you want to see kind of the ending there. But yeah, please, if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more. I should be posting these weekly or daily. And if you have a more optimized solution or just a comment, please comment below. Thank you very much.